Hi, everyone. This is Vicente Cruz, Oakland Greens event and fundraising coordinator, and we are here at our August virtual town hall. Should nonviolence be a Green Party political platform, national, state, and city? I can start out automatically by saying it's something that the Oakland Greens had taken up years ago. Now, in ours, if you go to oaklandgreens.org, shameless plug, you can see that on our, it actually doesn't say nonviolence, it says self-defense. We don't believe in aggression of any form, going at it, stuff. We believe in nonviolent communication, treating everyone, no matter what, with respect. At the same time, no one should, put their hands on you. And of course, that stems from police abuse of power throughout the Black community. And it's not ours, right? It's the Black Panther Party, part of their platform. It's one of the things that we adopted. So, but what we are asking today is the debate would be, is it something that should be taken up on the county, state, and national level? Should we start having that debate? Should we be changing and shifting? Now, one of the reasons here in Oakland we think that is because when we go out into the streets and talk to people, that is one of the issues. See, I think we started going out and asked, I want to say 2006, excuse me, first got here, maybe a little bit before that. I never really talked about when I was with the Contra Costa County Greens. That did not come up, but we started talking about it, I think 2006, maybe 2008, starting. Don't quote me, that's a lot of drugs ago. And so we started saying that, that we wanted to see be more of a self-defense stance again from police violence. So I would say, when we were talking on the street, one of the reasons we could not get African diaspora folks in the most impoverished and the most underserved communities, and that's dealing with a lot of this police violence the most on board. One of the things too was like, oh, y'all are pacifists, right? You're already getting our ass beat, why should I do it for you? So that was something that we thought of, and I personally think that it should be something that we have and debate as well, to have it not just be nonviolence, but be more of a self-defense standpoint. Oh, coming in. Sorry, come on. I'll keep going unless Orlando, you have something you want. If you can add something, yes or no. Unmute yourself. No?
Yeah, we having this conversation right now on a national level when it's coming to our bylaw that's outdated, because you got a lot of people that are sending emails on list servers, and the violence of the emails is tremendous. On our committee today, we was talking about diversity, because I'm the only African American that's on it. But the reality of it is, because I was telling the two of my, committee members, because you're a white ass skin color, the diversity doesn't have nothing to do with your pigmentation on the inside. So if you're from France and Britain, or you're considered white and you're in a southern state, the culture shift is totally different than you being white in the northern. So that it's kind of different. But to get to your question, that's where the violence is coming in at, because the racism, the sexism now is, if you're a candidate and you come show me your ID, is it appropriate for me to address you as a he or a she? What's the appropriate? So my ID might say this, but I make this transition. But is you going to respect me as my transition, or is that? So I figure a little more offline, but yeah, this is a great topic, and I think that not just for us as Greens, just people in general, because I can imagine the Democratic bylaws. So I have to study the bylaws, the convention laws, and the committee laws. But if you got laws that's outdated and you're trying to revive these dates and there's billions and billions of dollars at stake, do you feel the violence towards them individuals verbally and mentally is heavy right now?
Oh, yeah. Well, absolutely. And it is under the same umbrella. Violence against LGBTQ plus definitely has, the police are violent against them, or even go back, look what happened in Alabama, right? So I do believe that politically, sociopolitically, on that too, if we were to have it be more, nonviolent, and let me also say, I haven't ever heard anyone in the Green Party say, "Oh, you should let people put their hands on you, let the cops put their hands on you." Right? But what we're talking about here is actually ingraining it into our national, state, county strategy, that it becomes part of our platforms, like you say, even into our charters. I don't think it would really necessarily need to be part of our bylaws. Greg can correct us on that one. But having it in everybody's charter, that where we definitely don't want to see violence, at the same time, we would never advocate for anyone to allow the brutality that is going on in marginalized communities, in countries, and just to stand for that. That's one of the problems. It goes back to, right, if you stand up to a bully, most of the time the bully stops bucking, right? You bust a bully in the jaw, he usually stops, right? They usually stop. But I also think too, I mean, we're in the benefit of being in, for whatever reason, I don't want to go into reasons, but for whatever reason, we are able to have those serious discussions where we think about pretty much culturally in the Bay Area. I just want to call you whatever you want to be called. I could give a shit what it is. It doesn't affect me. Whether you want to be, whatever pronoun you want to use, if you don't want to use any pronouns, whatever your gender, sexual orientation, sexual at all, right? All the different forms of relationship models. Being non-monogamous myself, I've never had a problem within, the Bay Area or within the party about not having even my multiple partners come to events, anything like that. Remember having that stuff too. So I think it is just as important. And let me pause for a second. And Greg, can you correct with that? If it was to go into any sort of, it's not a bylaw things, it would be a charter, yes?
Well, not exactly. And that kind of goes back to actually what I was going to say, which is that the nonviolence is part of the 10 key values. And those 10 key values, basically most Greens, when they think about it, just think of the single word, like it's either nonviolence or decentralization or ecology. Those 10 key values were created in the 1980s. And the only, as far as I know, information that was there was a series of questions, 2 or 3 or 4 questions for each one. But there was never any, essays, any substantial, like our platform is like 100 pages long and it has, clear definitions of everything. But the 10 key values never got into that depth. And if it's okay, I'd like to read the 3 questions that are actually in our 10 key values that have been there ever since the 1980s. And to me, it doesn't mean that, to me, it doesn't preclude what you're just talking about, self-defense. I mean, to me, it's more like saying that nonviolence is, in the way that these questions are framed, is like, we will not have as our approach to dealing with problems being violent about how we're going to approach problems. So let me just read and see what you think. Okay, nonviolence. How can we develop effective alternatives to our current patterns of violence at all levels, from the family and the street, the nations and the world? Second question. How can we eliminate nuclear weapons from the face of the earth without being naive about the intentions of other governments? And the last question. How can we most constructively use nonviolent methods to oppose practices and policies with which we disagree, and in the process reduce the atmosphere of polarization and selfishness that it itself is a source of violence? So, it doesn't talk about self-defense or, when people usually talk about violence and nonviolence, I think usually you think of other things, but these three questions don't, seem to convey that. So I think that for all these 40 years, whatever it's been, there's been a misunderstanding about what was originally intended way back in the 1980s, as opposed to how you might typically think of what nonviolence is about.
Oh, thank you for that. Now, see, though, in nuclear war, I actually would be the only probably spot that I just because a country would launch it, I don't think, even if I had the power and had the mill, would launch back. I'm like, that doesn't seem to be any, there's no, again, yeah, that's one where I'd be like, oh, we just got to deal with what's about to happen, but I'm not firing back to destroy a bunch of innocent people and stuff like that too, because of a disputed government. Well, maybe we just need 11 key values. But I don't know if there's anything I haven't seen anything in any sort of written to where the Green Party says, like the Black Panther Party, the right to, self-defense and self-determination.
Yeah.
So maybe that is, again, it's something to talk about. And one of the many things that comes up for agenda items, or I guess it goes back to Green Sunday or for virtual town halls, well, like we're doing here, is to have, that specific conversation and all that too. So it was interesting that it was based on three questions, because also the first one and the second one, I don't know, it doesn't really necessarily say, let someone, let the police brutalize your community.
No.
No. So maybe it is a matter of trying to get more informations like that out there, and so it is more clear, because I said, trying to build an alternative political party.
Yeah, maybe the word nonviolence is not the right word for what they're trying to describe. Maybe they need to find a different word, or maybe even a couple of words, a little phrase or something. Anyway,
I think there's just three of us, Orlando. Thank you for raising your hand, but I think you can just jump in. We're all grown here. We're good.
Thank you. But I agree with you, Greg. But that's why I was saying a lot of the things that they have in the green was from the 80s in the OG time since. So if they updated, like under our national list service, right, under tone D, right, it's a insults, name calling, sexist, sexual racism, homophobic, or otherwise demeaning or degrading comments would not be tolerated. Personal one-on-one arguments are inappropriate and should be taken off the list server for any one-on-one communication, right? So as a prime example, I seen a guy get on the list server, use some type of words that his email got hacked and his personal email got hacked, and everything that he had about the Green Party was non-existent. And he's fighting to talk to the moderator to send an email to someone else to see how he can fight that bylaw based upon this old bylaw was not updated. So if we revise like the Oakland, like our local in county chapter, if we revise a lot of our county chapters and taking what we doing on the national, we would get more funding. We would have more access to the national data. We have more access to the state data because we have a good communication line. So like when the ballot assets is going out, we're submitting an application by the end of next month to call out to the states to let the states know that, hey, we're going to be active. But if the local chapters don't have enough of their paperwork and stuff together, when it's time to submit those delegates, a lot of these counties is not prepared because they have not enough volunteers to do that specific work. So that's what makes us the most strongest Green Party, and that's why a lot of folks like the Alameda County Green because of the work we do consistently. And from what I'm hearing, a lot of people follow our model. Great work to you and Laura and the whole team, but they're looking at us as California as, you know, we got a great model. We have a majority of the Greens in California.
Right. Well, you know, I wonder if one of the reasons why we have a reputation as pacifists is because that's not uncommon on the state listserv. There's been so many different debate, and actually the last state meeting I went to was one of the best, where it was not tolerated. We had that in the county. Same thing forever. And because people were pacifists, no one wanted to get into the conflict. And I'm like, yeah, I know who I am. And there's no way. I mean, we had members in the county twice, I can recall. I mean, I won't, you know, names been changed to protect the guilty, fuck the innocent, who cares? But there's been twice, and I mean, years ago now, it hasn't not happened recently, where one of the members was called named to the point where she was in tears. And I say she because that's how she identifies. She was in tears. And it was some pretty brutal language. And that was the one that snapped me.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, no, that ain't going down.
Yeah,
You know, and it was kind of selfish and practical, you know, for the
TV down.
people to hear it. Was that was when we were working on Don's campaign. And we were, you know, we're of course putting in really, really long hours. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I know what's going to happen. It's going to be one day where we have 3 events already. And then now here I'm at my 4th meeting and they're going to say something when, and then in my head, this is how the fucking formula goes down. Wait a minute. They unregistered Green to vote for Bernie and never registered back. And no one has ever seen registered back. Now you've been doing this. This is the 3rd time you're doing it. I just said, dude, if it happens again, I'm going to have a bad day and I ain't going to say shit. Like, oh, you like to, you know, you'd like to be a bully, huh? Yeah, I don't like bullies. Sorry, I'm a fucking child of an abusive alcoholic father. Don't like bullies. So I was like, we either need to do something nonviolent communication wise, or there will be violence. And I prefer not to have violence whatsoever. But I also know I'm not going to let that person talk to that other person in that way, with such hurtful language, not only making them go where everybody, you know, those ones where, oh my God, what? Motherfucker said that. Oh, that's where we're at. I didn't know we were on the block. You should have just told me because you know, I would have did it.
That's trying to implement that. I think.
So I think that's part of it is that maybe, you know, why we get the reputation as pacifists is because we have allowed people to be bullies in the sense of some sort of decorum or whatever, and rather than remove ourselves from the situation, everyone just sat there and just kind of didn't do anything and didn't do anything. Didn't kind of acknowledge it, positive, negative, just let it go and kind of moved on. But you're right, they weren't following bylaws for it. You know, like I said.
I think we need
values, 10 key values.
Yeah.
Yes.
But see, this is the thing about the 10 key values. A lot of folks, they don't even exercise the 10 key values. They use outside of the value. And I think it's no training on the 10 key values. That's where you come in at, Greg. because you come from groups, like for real, not like that, but you come from the roots of where it starts from. So when you get to my generation, by the time we get to 10 core value, we just looking at, man, which one of these is popular? You know, which one, but we never really exercise it because we never really taught for what it is. So we get taught from somebody that's a green, then next month being jumped to be a Democrat. They sending mixed messages because a lot of the people that did run, not to knock them, they jumped ship. So they 10 core value wasn't lined up with these 10 core values.
Well, we have that too.
Maybe we should have a green Sunday. I mean, that's a good point because I can't remember, at least in the last 5, 6, maybe 10 years, green Sundays that we've ever had one about the 10 key values. We could go over them and see if people have different understandings of what they are and how they can be applied, how we can make use of them. Yeah,
that's a good idea. That's a great idea.
Then they got to remember the 4 key value also. The 10.
Yeah, the German Greens had 4 key pillars, and,
but
and they were using
the history. Go ahead, Greg.
That's a good one. A good thing it's recorded. And let me ask, since it's kind of really just like a meeting of the Oakland Greens. On the other, are they the same 3 questions for every key value, or are they different for each?
Oh no.
Everyone's different. Right?
Every one of the 10 key values has its own set of questions.
Okay.
Some of them have more questions than others. So, you know, there's all kinds of stuff to discuss for each one.
And maybe that's one of the debate topics for that Green Sunday too. Should we add a 4th question? Does nonviolence mean not, or how would that go too? Does nonviolence mean
pacifism, or
no?
I mean, like you said, some people think that nonviolence means pacifism, that, you know, you're not supposed to.
So does nonviolence mean pacifism? That's okay. That's the question. That's the question.
Yeah.
Or you get someone think that grassroots democracy has something to do with grassroots democratic. You know, some people interpret words different. So if they look at it, people be like, oh, okay, is they doing democratic things? Or so I think as we explain it, and me personally, I suggest even if we have any new Green Party members, they should never have to recite the 10 core values. They should know them in order. They should know what it means in the values for real, because you get a lot of people who actually, what's green? They start talking about what Ralph Nader did, what Jill Stein did, you know, what Howie Hall.
Right.
But it's never to the value, because you still have those group of old timers who don't want to let go. So it's
I think, you know, like when I was 9 years old or something, they sent us down to the local church and we had to recite the 10 Commandments, right? Well, now you want to be a green, you gotta be able to say the 10 key values.
Yeah.
What are you thinking?
And pay respect to Germany for the 4.
Right. Yeah. Well, that'd be easier. Yeah. Get them to do 4. They remember 4.
Yeah, maybe that would be, and so now, of course, my head's racing on this. It's either you do it in January and you really start. Does the county have one in November?
No.
No.
Let me think. Let's see. This is August. We have September
And October.
And somebody is working on October.
Yeah.
We don't have anything beyond it.
Does the county normally, I can't remember, again, many drugs ago now, even though it was just last month, but does it do one in November? Like, because the Oakland Greens, we stop in October. Our season ends in October.
Oh, yeah. We go every month. November we have a Green Sunday, and then
December is the holiday party.
Yeah, the holiday party. Well, but we still always have something. Yeah.
Right. So I was thinking, if using it as a serious outreach tool, because this may be something that would motivate, you know, POAD folks in the flats. Do do it for January, really promote it, go out to Anti-Police Terror Project, and all them, they may want to get in on that debate and stuff too. And use it as a huge outreach. I guess that would also be heading out to Laney and everything and going, hey, we really need your input on this. And we should talk about that tomorrow at the Oakland Greens meeting. I'll have to put that on the agenda item. So I'm going to pull up Microsoft Word right now.
And to add on to that too, but since I think that we can also do like a podcast, like YouTube.
Oh, well, you know, I broadcast.
I mean, like, I know, like the campaign, so we get on other people's podcasts, other people, you know, services, and spread the word out also too. I can see you on KMEL right now.
Yeah. I don't think KML would ever let us on. That would be hilarious, but I don't think they'd do it. And what were we talking about? Sunday.
Well, you know, something else occurred to me, thinking about what people think about this word of the word nonviolence and what they think it might mean. And I think that on the other hand, you know, some people think nonviolence means pacifism. You know, you never fight back, you never even defend yourself. But on the other hand, other people say, well, nonviolence only means that you don't attack other people. And that means that it's okay to, you know, blow up a pipeline or, you know, or break the windows, right? Because remember, Occupy Oakland, that was one of the big arguments they had about when people they did a lot of spray painting and stuff, but even, you know, breaking the windows, right? And people said, no, that's violence. And they said, no, it's not violence. Violence is when you hit people, you know. So that's another aspect of this is what do people think about what do you call it? Material objects, attacking material objects. Is that violence, or is it violence only mean attacking people or attacking living things? So, you know, that's a whole another question.
Yeah, but I think if we can add on, you know, as basically what's the mindset of violence? What give you that concept to want to produce that violence? You know, so might can produce the concept as my violence. I might just cyber attack your whole computer. That could be a violence, you know, or the violence could be I might not say nothing to you, but now every time I see you, you don't say nothing to me. Now I can't sleep good. Now I got to watch you. So I think if we can carve the mindset of let's replace this non-violent, like with a word with love, you know, healing. So if somebody say, hey man, I'm about to do some violence, like, hey man, I'm about to get some love, you know, maybe your passion, like us, I know me, I'm passionate. So I can speak in a passionate way until someone else gonna be like, man, this man is violent, he in the rage. And then you can get someone else who understand that passion, so they accept it as love, like, and I feel what you're saying, and I don't think you went over the border, but I think you was right. So I think if we can adjust the passionate from the non-passionate, that's what balancing with the violence. Because if I get passionate, I'm gonna start crying. So if I get crying in certain cultures, they gonna like he's pissed off, you know. But in other culture, they're gonna be like he's, you know, he's releasing the trigger that this person said. You know,
that's never happened to me ever. Well, you know, that is I remember and I really loved that debate at Occupy Oakland had about what was violence, and really what came out of that was in the disagreement between the two different sides, it was like, okay, well, you're equating property damage with life. I can't get on board with that. That just makes no sense to me. Now, if you want to have the debate to me that smashing the JC Penney's window doesn't do anything. All they're going to do is workers are going to miss work at Penny's. They're going to collect some insurance money on it, and it's not really doing anything to make the statement of the act. I will have that debate all day long because, like, okay, yeah, don't go smash J.C. Penney's. You go down to J.C. Penney headquarters, wherever the fuck that is. I mean, that again, for legal reasons, I wouldn't do that. But if we're having the debate and someone did, I was like, okay, well, that makes more sense to me, right? I understand why they broke that window. I don't understand why they broke this one. And that really came about too, about the McDonald's on 14th, where, and also the Foot Locker, right? Foot Locker, was it? They used to be on Broadway.
Yeah,
right?
downtown.
Where they ended up shutting it down completely. People lost their jobs. I mean, we were there talking to workers the next day, and they were saying that they didn't have to have another store that they could go and sub into, they would have been ass out. So I'm like, okay, so that smashing of the window totally did the opposite. You actually helped the fucking system that you're trying to rage against. Idiot.
I had that argument too, and I used to explain to people when like the older folks used to protest, it was more communication with their loved ones.
Right.
And today's mindset of protesting is giving the police department and sheriff department overtime money.
Yeah.
You don't need to protest. You just get the lawyers. The lawyers go and do the proper work. We as citizen community organizers, we make a stand with our body of work by the extra. But like we were saying with Vicente and you were saying, Greg, that's why I said that education at this point need to be tightened up, because if we're not educated, like most people, like this election, where the Greens gonna have the most pressure out of everyone in Alameda County. They're looking at them 5,400 votes that can help them do whatever they need to do from a city, 21 cities, the ones that's the rural areas. And so if we're not educated, so many people are going to send us so many proposals and so many issues that, according to our bylaws, we don't support democratic values. So it's like we taking 10 core. So if we can get the ones that got our 10 core values and really going to do something for us.
And what they mean is the Democratic Party.
Yeah. But no, I'm saying, we throw a functioning event and we help you get in office, you need to have your crew and your people come support us. Come show some body of work. And we do a rock the vote event with Green Party. Y'all come support us and help the Oakland chapter get some funding so we can help these folks get out here and get the message out. But don't just get our votes in.
Well, it is also true that on these issues that we talk about, where more people will view this online because it's the issue they care about. And when it comes to having issues in the public, that voter guide, we don't have that many, registered Greens like in Oakland to compare to the amount of voter guides we hand out. So yes, people who now would consider themselves left Democrat, I guess is the label, right? Would be a good label to use.
Patent that word.
Rely on what us progressive people are doing, thinking what's going to come out in the voter guide to help them judge which Democrat they're going to vote for. So as much as I'm actually on trying to register people who aren't registered, never have been, or think they can't anymore, maybe that's an avenue of it's like, hey, something to write, that I would write and approve by Oakland to go into the next voter guide, where it's like, hey, you're reading this and we know you're not a Green, we know you're a Democrat, right? Isn't it time? Isn't it? I mean, like how much longer are you gonna wait? Something of that nature. And me, I'd like to be aggressive in their face. Like, is it enough? Or maybe that's just a question, and which I actually have posed that question to Democrats. What would it take? Is it everything? Just tell me, like, does it have to be like no power for a month because of like climate change? Does it have to be tanks rolling down the street where all of a sudden you get so like, oh, maybe we should have an alternative political party and not just be a duopoly? You know, I want to know. I genuinely am curious. Like it probably would help me sleep at night, make me a little more sane because I don't understand how anybody. We talked about this at the last VTH. It was to get it anytime you have a society. You talk about passion and crime. Anytime you have a society that has normalized stepping over houseless people, driving down past all of the fucking down San Leandro Avenue, all those people burnt out homes where for whatever reason they're probably cooking something. And you know, and it may be drugs sometimes, but actually not as much as people think. A lot of people that are housed are families. Motherfuckers is actually working 2 jobs, still can't afford the rents of the cities and stuff where they work and live in, right? So anytime you have a society that can do that, that's a fucking mind fuck, man. You got to look yourself in the mirror and go to bed. That is a huge psychological trauma.
Right.
The whole world is suffering from PTSD. And especially, as we've been screaming forever too, globally, it's going towards fascism. It's the whole planet has been going towards right for about 10, maybe 12 years now. Out and out, right? And now here we are, the closest we've ever been. So I get it. What is enough? People are going to watch this, and I can't wait for the YouTube comments. Please tell me what would it take? When is it enough? Because it was enough for me fucking back in 99. That's what did it for me. Right? All the WTO, the IMF, and how they're just taking loans out on these countries that will never be able to pay them back, impoverishing not just like 3 or 4 generations, fucking dozens, hundreds of generations down the line, they'll never be able to pay these loans back, forcing them to be in poverty and all that shit. And then again, you go back to the racist, the race component, ethnicity, fuck race, ethnicity component, gender, all that shit too. Same thing, fucking we're going all the way around the fucking wheel. All the shit with Ukraine, again, money that could be, tax dollars that could be staying here. I don't know where the fuck they find that money. They're just printing it like it's fucking candy or whatever. But the Ukraine didn't have good records on ethnicity, on race relations, or LGBTQ plus at all. Fucking not at all. Never have. Never. And now all of a sudden everybody's got blue and yellow flags outside. That fucking you go through Berkeley. Get the fuck out of here. Really? Stop. Fucking. You know, too. It's people don't research. We've gotten so much into a convenient economy, and I mean not just in how we shop and also how we consume our news, how we consume our media. If you even ask the average person, should a news organization, fucking Channel 7, whatever, wherever the fuck you are, ABC, and whatever your affiliate is, people who may be watching this around the world or broadcasting, whatever your TV station, if you ask the average person, is a minute and a half enough time to get information on child sex trafficking that's going on in your fucking country or your community? Is that enough time? They don't know. But yet we take it. We drink that shit up like it's fucking heroin. We don't fucking give a shit, right? Which is another thing where, in bringing it back to topic, why I think it could be, if we're more specific in the 10 key value and get more people in, because there are more radicals, thinkers anyway, than there are average people. It just doesn't seem to be the case. There's always more oppressed people than the fucking oppressor, right? So you start asking them these questions, they're going to give you answers that are going to benefit them in the community all the time, pretty much 95% of the time. Right? How do we mobilize those people? And maybe if this is the debate again, trying to turn it into something bigger for January, something that really, because it really does. And you know, I always end it, not literally ending it, but statements like this, my rants. The planet's pretty much had enough. Anytime they think, you know, definitely, well, most likely still within my lifetime, the Gulf Stream's going to shut down. You know, it's like, okay, you know, you don't got it. If you don't got to listen to me. I'm just some fucking dude that likes to read and is all wonky and all that shit and is total nerd as far as that goes about social justice. I get it. So you don't got to listen. You don't got to listen at all, because guess what? Planet going to tell you. it's gonna fucking tell you. You know. So.
Well, I really like what you started off with when you're talking about the unhoused people all over the streets, and like you're saying, you know, what's it gonna take? Because, you know, you just stepping over them. I mean, because to me, it's like, I don't know if you ever heard this tale about the boiling frog, that supposedly if you put a frog in a pot of water and you start turning up the heat on the top of the stove, the water gets hotter and hotter, but it's gradual, right? So it gradually gets hotter, and then the frog just adjusts, and it just stays in the pot, and eventually you get to be boiling and the frog is still there. So the idea is that, when you make these real gradual changes, people just adjust and they say, okay, well, they see, think about 20, 30 years ago or something, maybe the first time you saw unhoused person on the sidewalk, whatever. Oh yeah, I heard about that in the newspaper. Yeah, it looks like there's a few people that are having to sleep out in the streets, and so you first notice it, and then a couple of years go by and you start noticing a few more, and you say, oh, this is horrible. But people just keep adjusting to all this, whether it's seeing people in the streets, or whether they have to tighten their belts, and you say, well, okay, I got to take a new job because the company I work for laid off, and my new job I'm being paid less, but I just have to tighten my belt and get used to it. And in the meantime, they're bailing out banks, or giving corporations big tax breaks, and a million things. The climate, right? You talk about the climate change. I mean, 20 or 30 years ago, we didn't have all these huge wildfires and such, but you read about it in the news, and then gradually, what was it, 5 years ago, 6 years ago, we had the first big wildfires up in Santa Rosa or Chico or somewhere, and now we got them all over the planet. You got them in Hawaii, you got fires in Spain and everywhere. So it's like, what's it going to take? Yeah, you're just going to let it keep getting worse, and just say, oh, well, I think that's a really good way to lead it off. Just, what is it going to take? And you talk about all these things that we've just kind of gotten used to. We've gotten used to 5,000 or 6,000 unhoused people in Oakland, and we've gotten used to all these ultra billionaires. Now we got ultra billionaires, and the average person, their real wages are going down. So, how are we going to get used to all this kind of stuff? And I think that's a really good way to, say, are you just going to be like that boiling frog and just get used to everything that happens, and then we'll be gone?
So for you, yeah.
what's it gonna take?
And I would go further down a rabbit hole and say, not even that we get used to it, but we get afraid that we could be next. So we can't look at it, and we don't want to invite that energy into us, knowing like, you got a dollar, I do, but I can't give it to you, man. What if I don't have the dollar? As well, I think there is a certain amount of, and I say that from personal experiences. I can tell many times where I have taken jobs and work where I did not want to. Right? I've been at places, I will say places, where I had applied before, and this is a true story, applied for years with my given name, never called, ever. One day, 1 year, I decide to change my name from Spanish to English, Vincent Cross. Call on the same day, interview the next day, and when I went to that fucking interview, you should have seen the look on their face. Oh shit, you're black. They could have just said it. They didn't. They didn't say it out loud, but you could see that was the fucking. Their eyes were wide, and people had folks and people go, we know how that goes. But I mean, afterwards, they interviewed me. Oh, obviously he knows what he's doing, and I got the job. But still, it was exactly the same thing, and that happens all too often, right? Yeah, wasn't too crazy. So I think it would. So that's what I put it on the agenda for tomorrow's meeting as well. So I'll have it when we get there. Is there anything else? I think that was actually like a good ending.
Yeah, I think perfect. Great dialogue. And like you said, I think people around globally, some people that I know, they're working on that same situation. You know, I work with the county, other little stuff. But I think what you were saying to the point, those bad seeds are getting wound out. And
Yeah.
we know it's a crime what they're doing to our communities globally.
I think they are taking steps in the state. Well, we can do that off recording. This has been the Oakland Greens virtual town hall for August. My name is Vicente Cruz, your event fundraising coordinator. As always, thank you for listening. We appreciate it. And we will see you on the next time. Remember, check out all of our social media, and you can see all of those on oaklandgreens.org. Peace.